Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome to episode 3 of Tastemaker Talk. This is our bi-weekly webinar podcast where we chat about the industry with our food creator business besties. So I am Abby Rodriguez, and this is Chandice. We are the CEO and COO of Tastemaker Conference. We are super excited to chat with you today all about what do you do in Q2 and also Q3 since we're coming into that. But really, we want to talk to you today about just this middle point during the business calendar year. That's like, what should we be focusing on? What should we be doing? Because I think this is a time that's kind of not a pain point necessarily, but it just kind of has some lag room, and it's a good time to be reflecting on key elements of your business. So we're going to talk to you from how we run things at Tastemaker, but that we think are helpful for food creators as well. So I'll turn it over to Chandice to do our sponsor spotlight.
Well, we are so excited today. We'd love to spotlight our returning sponsor, Chicory. Chicory believes in the power of recipes to inspire consumers and drive commerce. Not only do they offer shoppable tech, but they also provide other added technology services that can help food bloggers with monetization and diversifying their income stream, which is something we're all looking to do, right? So including third-party cookie tracking, which is major for us right now. So thank you, Chicory. We can't wait to see you in Las Vegas, and we're so excited for you guys to meet them there if you haven't, or visit with them further if you have.
Wonderful. Next up, we have our wild comments. And so the vision behind this segment is to provide a little bit of commiseration because there are some things that only food bloggers and food content creators can relate to each other about. So think of this like food creator, food blogging equivalent of mean tweets on Kimmel, Jimmy Kimmel Live. So we know you have kooky comments and funny things that happen on your blog and social media. We'd love to hear them and connect and laugh and just hear what's going on there. So you can submit those in the community forum. It's linked in the chat. Daphne's going to drop that in there if you have anything, or if there's something you want to commiserate and just drop it in the chat right now. Feel free to do this as we're live and you're attending live. You can drop your comments, let us know where you're from, say hi in the chat. We want to see what you're doing there, and feel free to ask questions along this discussion and conversation because we love to hear from you and see where you're from and what you're up to. I'm excited for new food news now.
Okay. Are you excited?
Yes. I'm like, what is going on in the world of new food?
I know it's funny because I told Abby I wanted to start this segment because I feel like as foodies and food bloggers and influencers or food fans, whatever you're here for, we should be on top of what's happening in the food community. And it's been really fun because as I go look at the news, I'm like, oh, how did I not know that? Or that's odd. It's just been fun. So I'm going to start off by first. I have some fun and some serious ones too this time, which is, yeah, I know. I'm going to do some serious ones. So the first fun one is Wendy's is adding something new to their menu. And I have to do one like menu thing every time now because we've kind of done that. So I have to do at least one. They teased us back in the fall with this new menu item, and now they're rolling it out nationwide. Can you guess what it is?
Another something burger. Is it another is it like an Impossible burger, a veggie burger?
That's a good guess, but I think I'm seeing a trend in moving towards high protein. I don't know if you guys have seen this, probably because that's part of my life right now too, but I'm seeing that. So they are rolling out a line of saucy nugs, and they call them saucy nugs.
What does that mean?
So they're nuggets, like chicken nuggets, but they're sauced already. So they have all these yummy sauces.
So they're like wings.
Yeah, they're basically like boneless wings. I feel like they're kind of trying to elevate the chicken nug experience at a fast food restaurant.
Interesting. Okay.
That was one that I was like, that is interesting. And since part of Q2, like moving into Q3, if you work in food, you know that we're already thinking about fall and holidays and everything. So M&M's just announced their brand new fall flavor, which is pumpkin pie. I know.
Have they already done the PSL? Have they already done the pumpkin spice latte? Or is pumpkin pie the closest?
They did. No, I think they did. Because I think I remember it being like in a brown bag. So yeah, and along with new flavors, Goldfish just announced their dill pickle goldfish.
I could be into that. I love pickles. Like love pickles.
I feel like pickles are having a day. They really are.
Can I
And
interject with a side story? Because my friend from childhood has been visiting me today and from Portland. And if any of you live in Portland or are familiar with the area, they have this minor league baseball team. I think they're called the Portland Pickles. And she was saying
my
like
friend's sons play on it.
they have really so,
Yeah.
but they have this massive following. And she was saying that like their marketing team and their social media team has blown it out of the water because they have this huge presence, all these things. They have a live tattoo artist at the games where you can get a tattoo spontaneously of like the pickle like mascot brand. Anyway,
Maybe we should do that at Tastemaker. You can get a Tastemaker conference.
we'll have a live tattoo artist. Yeah.
That might be the only one I would ever consider. Just kidding.
Anyway, back to pickles.
No, but that's awesome because shout out to Brock Roundy. He's their starting pitcher, and he is one of my dear friend's sons. He is amazing. He graduated
That's
from this.
awesome.
My boy's going to. So, yay, so fun. And one last announcement of new stuff is that Heinz released 2 new sauce flavors, limited edition just for summer, a harissa flavored aioli and a
Mhm.
black garlic ranch.
Oh,
I think they're trying to
I also
elevate.
love ranch. Pickles and ranch, man.
I
It's
know.
where
It's meant to be. Okay, so another big thing is that Dr. Pepper just took second place as the America's favorite soda and pushed Pepsi out to number 3. Coke is still number 1 by far, but
yeah.
Pepsi always reigned number 2, and Dr. Pepper just knocked them out. So
Hmm.
you're a Dr.
Okay.
Pepper fan. I think that's having their day. I have a Dr. Pepper cake on my website, you know? So it was funny because in this article, they were linking to all these Dr. Pepper recipes. I was like, oh, I should send them that.
Good.
So, anyways, that was the fun stuff. And then the last one I was going to share was just kind of crazy is that grocery prices are up even more than you think. Grocery prices are up 25% overall. That's a lot. And then 31% if you figure in the cost of fuel. It's insane. Insane.
That is insane. And also important, right, is recipe developers and creators, because those are things you need to be factoring in to your financial budgets and planning, which we're going to be talking about. But that's
Well, I heard 2.
shocking to me.
It
I
is.
didn't know it was that high. I thought
Yeah.
it was like 15%.
Oh, sorry. What'd you say?
I thought it was like in the 15% range. I had no idea it was that high.
I know, isn't that crazy? Well, one of my friends, she did a reel and she was saying why food bloggers have, charge for their work. And she's like, I was developing a recipe with cherries. I spent $44 on cherries for one recipe. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so it's true.
Mhm.
And then today we were talking to one of our new sponsors, Super Cubes. They're amazing. You have got to go look at their simmer pots. They're so cute. So they're all about reducing waste, and they have these portioned like cube trays. And
Mhm.
so she was making her daughter applesauce and using the trays to portion it out. But then she had all this leftover like apple peels, apple cores. So she put them all with coriander and spices and water, and she made it into one giant super cube. And then she made a simmer pot, and it was so fun.
Oh,
Yeah. So they're our happy hour sponsors. So you'll get to meet them there. We're going to show how to reduce food waste. As you know, with Tastemaker, we're always trying to be mindful of our environment and of everything that we can. And so reducing food waste is going to be a new thing for us this year that we're going to focus on. We're excited.
that's awesome. That's exciting to hear and ties in nicely to all those things.
Yeah.
Is that it for the new food news?
You have to get a jingle made. New food news, new food news. I don't know.
That is the jingle. You are the jingle.
The jingle. New food news. But yes, we're done. That's good. That is all in the new food news. Go get your chicken saucy nugs and
And your pickles and your garlic ranch, black garlic ranch. Yes.
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, thank you for that little appetizer palate cleanser there. So we can dive on into what do you do in Q2/Q3, because we are coming into that on the tail end of Q2, coming into Q3. So this is a question, it's more of a learning curve that we had to figure out as we have been running Tastemaker for the last 7 going. Are we going on? We're
It's
7.
8 this year.
It'll
last
not,
year, 27, right?
I don't know. I think we're 8 years, you
Okay.
know, coming up upon a decade. I think we have some experience under our belt that way of running a company that is adjacent. It's part of the food creator industry, but it runs a lot like a customer-based company because of the nature of that, right? Like everybody here on the call and on this webinar here, like you're essentially a customer and part of this community. Um, and there's a lot of things we've had to learn about how to run a business and the methodology and application and just acumen behind that. And so we also understand that a lot of these building blocks for running a business are very similar when you are running your website, but a website or a creator business is slightly different because there's certain metrics and different things that you need to be tracking and looking at in terms of planning. So I feel like Chandice and I have developed a really good sense for what both of those look like and being able to now come together and talk to you about what it looks like to run our business in hopes that we can, help you and just talk to each other and have discussions about these things. So Candice runs This Vivacious Life. That's her blog. And she has Holiday Food and Fun, which is her second blog and website. I have the Butter Half that I used to do, part-time to full-time work on. It still exists. I don't necessarily put out a ton of new content there just as it comes. But we have learned a lot of valuable information along the way and have some systems that we've put into place for each quarter that help us focus on consistent growth and engagement and keep us on track to reach our annual goals. So the way we're going to frame this conversation, and hopefully we get to all these topics, but if we don't, this is what the recap is. We want to focus on marketing, promotion, customer, audience, subscriber, follower engagement, diversification of revenue streams, streamlining operations, and financial planning and budgeting are really, I think, the main focus of how we do things when looking at Q2 and Q3. Like that is really where we're putting our energy and time. So when it comes to marketing and promotion, I think of like content planning. And Chandice, I feel like you're really good at this because you do have such a seasonal blog. And I think this would be an interesting conversation to talk about the difference between like how are you prioritizing evergreen content versus seasonal content that's also really important in terms of like this time where it's a lot of planning for Q4, which is a big time for all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. So for just with everything going on with, updates and SEO and all of that, I'm finding that it's very important. And we've heard this from Arson, Andrew, our SEO experts, that if you have good content that's already ranking, but maybe it's fallen in rankings, go back and do really high quality edits on those because it's content already made for you. So I am personally, and a bunch of my blogger friends that I know that I communicate with often, we're all, and that goes from the very top, the gals who are, Alyssa from the Recipe Kitchen on down to myself, we are all working on updating blog posts and doing that seasonally first. So right now, updating your barbecue posts, updating your summer salads, getting those out right now, and then start thinking of like, okay, so I'm going to start in July updating stuff that's going to be searched in July and August, and then just keep doing that. But also, so updates are very important right now. I just want to reiterate that. That's what I've heard is how important updates are. And specifically, something I want to tell you is how important that first paragraph is. I heard something recently that was great. And it said, if someone types in, for example, I just updated my raspberry pie. If someone types in raspberry pie, they've already decided to make it for the most part. Your job is to convince them to make yours. You don't need to tell them what raspberry pie is. For the most part, they pretty much know that. I mean, you can tell them a little bit, but that first paragraph is where you set yours apart. You use those words that that tell a story to bring yours back, not tell a story, but those capture words, if you will. Buttery, homemade, flaky, all of that. It only takes 30 minutes, which it does.
The hook.
Yeah, for example. Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. So updating current content that you had, and using free services. You can use like SEMrush, for example, and you can do 10 searches a day on their magic tool. It's called a magic search tool or something, keyword search tool, to see which ones of yours has dropped, and do those first. Because if you've dropped, update, make the high quality updates and do that. Then as far as like holiday planning, um, I'm already working on the recipe development now for those posts that are going to go live. Like all my apple recipes will start going live in August because it's coming upon apple season for people who don't live where I live. That's 115 degrees.
You've
But
been planning it. You start in Q2
absolutely, yes,
for
right,
your Q4 content.
right now. Yeah. And I've also planned out. So I use Airtable, for example, and I have two writers that was one of the best decisions I made just because there's no way I could do it all myself. And they're really great and they help with that. So I planned literally, I like to plan ahead. So I've planned through November, December already on Airtable. So I and they can look ahead and they're not working ahead necessarily, but they're looking ahead to see what we're creating. And I've done the keyword research and all of the things to plan for that. So that planning starts in Q1, Q2, so that
Yeah.
you're thinking ahead and then being willing to adjust and move stuff for sure. If you have a post that's doing really well, for example, let's say that you are killing it with anything that you do that has to do with donuts. Start doing more content around, like do more donut recipes, and then you can get the backlink from the higher one. Plus, Google sees you as an authority on that topic. So, but yeah, starting in Q2, just planning, thinking ahead, updating old posts that are within season. Those are some of the things that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, because I remember, and it's so hard to say like what the recommendations are for updating old content because it was like, do I do it a week before that I want people to see this, or do I do it 2 months ahead or a month? And like, I mean, as a blogger, just based on not as an SEO expert, but as a blogger, because I think that's important to have these conversations with what is working for you as the blogger and creator based on your own data that you're seeing within your traffic and your website versus, just like, here's the recommendation that so and so says because I'm an expert. Like, what have you seen that works in terms of the timeline of that, like of when you should be doing it specifically?
Well, and
Or
I
if
will
it doesn't happen anymore.
And I will say, with the whole Google leak, I found it very helpful to hear that other sources from outside of Google pointed to that post actually do
Mhm.
matter. Like
Yeah.
that was helpful for me because what that tells me is when I update a post, it should be going out to my newsletter. It should be going on Facebook, going on Instagram in the form of a reel. All of that it should be going out everywhere. You
All signals. Yeah.
yeah, for all those signals to come back because then if that reel does well, it's going to boost you up in Google. It sounded like from the Google leak, from what I understand.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like when I do my weekly newsletters, I'm looking at what did I update this week that I can share so that those signals are coming back to that. I
Mhm.
mean, if you could share it that day, even better, which I
Yeah.
try to share it on social that day, but the newsletter is more gathered from the week. Um, but yeah, I liked learning that those outside signals actually do matter as far as rankings.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super important. So from the tastemaker side of things, I want to talk a little bit about for those of you who maybe have like a physical product that you're pushing or that you are promoting or you're wanting to create and you're thinking about how am I structuring my time and my strategy around that. Is that where we're at with Tastemaker right now, heavily right now in terms of our marketing and promotion? Is a lot of planning with email marketing specifically. We do, I would say, 90% of our sales are through email. And they have been through the beginning in our ticket sales. And I think just really coming up with those plans of what did the sales funnels look like? What topics are we going to be focusing on? And then making sure we're making really engaging, helpful content that is about things that you guys want to be learning about, right? We have a diversifying your income stream email series we're working on right now that's going to be super helpful and really awesome because I think like that's something people are needing. And so for us, it's like we are in full planning mode so that we can be releasing those come Q3, the end of the month here, and have those be an ongoing promotion so that, come Q4, you have the information you need to start planning for Q4 to like be making those moves to figure out how to actively promote things on your websites within your business, but then also planning for Q1 of the next year when there's a lot of like that the new starting off the year of like, hey, this is when I want to launch this product. This is when I'm going to get this off the ground. And really strategizing like what that looks like long term. So that's something we are really focusing on. We don't do a ton of targeted advertising within Tastemaker. We haven't really necessarily, not that we haven't had a need for it, but we sell through word of mouth and just through our very engaged community within email marketing and a little bit on social media. But I'm curious to hear if, like what people's thoughts are on that, or Chandice, like what your thought is on targeted advertising or like paid social media marketing for your blog specifically. Have you dabbled in any of that, or are you investing in that, or do you find that it's better use of your time and energy in
Yeah.
other more organic ways?
Well, I was going to say, I think it's great with Tastemaker because, for example, like this diversifying your income series that we're going to be sharing to our newsletter, sorry, to our newsletter, it's very timely. We're looking at our community and what their pain points are right now. Like, what is going on right now? What are we hearing you say? And how can we, as your education platform for food bloggers, help you overcome some of those pain points? And so I really like, sometimes planning is just the best thing you can do because it helps you create the best content for your audience. My friend Molly from What Molly Made she's speaking at Tastemaker conference in January, and she is a genius when it comes to her audience. She literally did multiple things that I loved. She created a form and asked her audience to fill it out, and she asked them to fill out their biggest pain points, like what's hard for you about getting dinner on the table, what is all of these different things. And then she is literally taking those top things and she's creating recipes around the pain points of her readers. And I'm like, that's so genius. She's not just going to do the keyword
and see, yeah, like here's the low hanging fruit or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly. She's actually serving her audience. And I heard something that Andrew, I think, said, where he said, if all of a sudden your site was down, would your audience know or would they be outraged and be like, where are all my favorite recipes? Where is Molly? Where is or whoever? And I think when you are actually there to serve them and to help them overcome something that's hard, those are going to build those loyal followers more so than, so when you release the same recipe as so-and-so, they're going to pick yours over it because they know that you've already helped them achieve other things that have been hard for them in the kitchen. So I really love that her planning was very, very directed to her audience. And it didn't come from the form of like ads and targeting. It came from that personal relationship of creating a small form and asking them to fill it out. And then literally, so remember Microsoft, how they told us food bloggers who utilize AI will far surpass those who do not. And remember, the AI is not creating your content or creating your pictures. It was using it as like a business colleague to help you
like an assistant.
Yeah, your assistant. Yeah. So then she took that information and she put it into AI and was like, help me create a business plan for the next 6 months that will help my audience overcome these pain points. And it gave her all these awesome ideas. And then also she used it to create the newsletter titles that are the hook, because getting your newsletters opened and clicked through can also be hard. And so dang, I am like, every time I get her emails, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to know that. And I click on her emails because it pulls you in. So anyways, yeah. I like the way that has been done. And she's going to be teaching us that in January at Tastemaker. I'm so excited. She's going to be creating the form with you. She's going to be she created funnels within her email. That's very cool because then you're getting like specific things that matter to you. Like she has multiple things. Like for example, I do mocktails and gluten-free recipes, but not everyone wants that. So you'd be able to pick and choose. So same with her. So My point is I think a lot of times the targeting and ads and stuff like that, when you come back to just a more personal level in talking to your community and asking what they want, and then using that with AI and things like that to help you, you are going to crush it because your audience is going to be like, wow, she really listens, you know?
And I think that goes back that, I mean, you basically just covered our second point, which is
Our
audience subscriber engagement. Like, how do you foster that with your audience? So no, I think that was a perfect segue because I think like that is the main message that we're hearing is you are your own brand and you have the ability to really like foster that sense of community. That's what sets you apart is because you have developed trust and brand, like a brand loyalty to your brand essentially in your business, which I think is a huge part of any business is trust and brand loyalty. I think it's the reason why people choose, it's like, am I gonna buy a pair of Nikes or am I gonna buy a pair of, Adidas? I mean, you can buy both, certainly, but I think like people have certain brand loyalties for certain reasons because you like how certain things look or fit, or they just make more sense to you. And I think that is a nice thing about competition within the industry is it allows for options for people with what works best for them. Um, and I'm super excited for her class because I think there's a lot of really great knowledge of ways that we can be doing that. And that's really what we're trying to focus on. Like we hear you saying, we want to learn how to build our audience, like our audience, and really engage with them better and diversify things and leaning into that and providing that education that way.
Well, I think using social platforms to also help that, for example, I have a friend who just created a series on basics for living gluten-free, Erin from Athletes. And she did that not because it's probably going to be like her reels that showcase the food go way crazy. So these probably aren't going to go crazy. But what she did is she was one trying to foster like for her audience, her core audience who maybe don't have that knowledge to be like, I'm still here to help you learn how to do this gluten-free life much easier without being like, this has to be a viral reel. Everything's not about you, it's about them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I really liked that, looking at your audience and being like, what do they need to learn? I know, and she probably thought, well, I know gluten-free, but maybe my audience actually doesn't know as well as I do. And so how can I help educate them,
And I do like the idea of using AI as a tool because here I'm going to go off on a side tangent, but this is what these discussions are. I feel like there is this internal war, not okay, maybe that's a little extreme, like a little bit of a conflict and a battle between AI is bad and it's taking over our content as creators because AI is coming in, pulling our content and making this amalgamation of information that's being put to the top so that we're becoming obsolete. But instead, I think of complaining about that, right? It's like, well, what can we do? And I think that's what we're all actively here doing. It's like, what can we do to set ourselves apart and maintain our audience? And I think like switching our paradigm and perspective to not looking at it as the enemy and critically thinking about the problem. Sure, I think that's very important. But then thinking like, how can this be a tool and an assistant? And I personally love AI. I think it's helped us be very efficient on the tastemaker side of things, creating SOPs, creating agendas, like you were saying, helping create business plans and newsletter topics and titles and things. So I think that's a good homework assignment. If any of you here like, I want a task to walk away from, is to plug in some ideas for, hey, I need to have a business plan for the rest of the year around, my seasonal content or like around my newsletter sales funnels that I want to do, and just plug it into AI and see what happens and just get curious and have a conversation with it. I think it is a really helpful brainstorming tool and thinking of it that way.
I have to say the words having a conversation with it make me really happy to hear you say, because we have talked about this, about when you stop like viewing it as the enemy and rather, because it's an it right now, it's a software, but rather
it's machine learning.
Yes. View it as a tool to help you. You are the leader. You are in charge and you can guide it. And there's times when I ask it to do something and then I go, no, I need it this way or a little bit better or whatever. And I like that. So having that conversation is good because then you're going to get exactly what you want instead of being like, well, that didn't produce anything helpful. Keep refining it and it will work.
And I think understanding like what AI is, which it is machine learning, and understanding the mechanism of how it works, is that it works by our input. It's a very collaborative process. Like AI doesn't exist unless we are providing it feedback, and we are in essence, we are having a conversations with this entity, this artificial intelligence, because it has it has a level of intelligence to do that, but it is so human first and relies on humans, and it is impossible to replicate the complexity of the human brain, and to be able to quantify human behavior. As much the people that are like the singularity and AI is bad and it's going to take over the world, I'm like, I just don't believe in it that much. That like, I just think humans are so incredible and complex and amazing that it 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 relies on us to figure out what to say, to your point. So that's my take on AI. I know a lot of people have different feelings about it, but I could talk about it all day long. We talked about this on the panel and I got super nerdy, and I feel like it was crickets because they're like, I don't care what you're saying, but I get super nerdy about it because I think it's interesting and it matters.
I love it. Why don't you tell everybody what you're working on? If you guys don't know, she's getting her master's degree. You should tell everyone what you're working on.
Yeah. So I am getting my master's in sociology, but I'm focusing on digital sociology, and my thesis is on the politics of the creator economy. So I am very obviously, I developed that thesis and that topic because of Tastemaker and like the professional world in which I work, but it's like very near and dear to my heart to, with an effort to understand this is and legitimize the industry. Like that is my mission and quest in life, is to like help legitimize that and really understand it from like a research theoretical perspective of like what drives it. And it's a very big project. I hope it'd be cool to turn it into a book and give a TED talk and all the things, but I think yeah, the goal is to help legitimize this, because the internet and the creator economy will shift and maybe be called something different down the road, but I don't foresee this going anywhere, because technology and the digital is very much a part of our lives, unless we all decide to light it on fire and say no to digital technology in general. But I don't see that happening in our lifetime, but so yeah, that's what I'm working on. So that's where I get very excited and nerdy about all that stuff.
Well, and the thing is that on our end, on the back end, we here at Tastemaker are trying very hard to advocate for you, to advocate for the creator economy. As Abby mentioned, she's working on her thesis. We've partnered with the Fancy Food Show to do more we're doing panels with them to really make sure that brands are aware of how important creators are in their business plan.
And just the buyers and retailers, like big corporations, are all a part of that ecosystem
Yeah.
too. Not
And
just the
see that legitimacy that it's not going anywhere. It's just going to keep growing. And then we're also working into that philanthropist side. We're working really closely with a couple different charities. St. Jude is one that we're working very closely with. We have an incredibly exciting project coming out this fall with them that works with food creators. Because I'll tell you what, I just got back from their influencer summit, and the gamers, they make millions and millions and millions of dollars for nonprofits like St. Jude. It is crazy. Gamers are just sitting there and they're working hard. They are working very, very hard, but they're playing behind that screen and they're like, yeah, and you need to donate. This charity is really cool. And the other kids who are playing across the other side of the screen are like, all right, sounds good. They make so much money for really wonderful causes that when I was there, I was like, our food creators should be doing this too. This is what we need to do. So we're really excited to get more outside of ourselves within this food creation and life. It can be very isolating behind a computer to create recipes, to put them out, to worry that you're not up on SEO or you don't, you're planning for Q4 and all of these things. So we're trying to give you more things that feel grounding and also give you even more of like purpose and fulfillment in your job, that then come back full circle with your community to see the full you and be like, oh, I am even more attached to this creator because they care about everything. Not everything, but meaning all aspects of their life.
Well-rounded
All
situation.
around. Yeah. So
Well,
really,
and I think that goes nicely into the next point is diversification of just your business. And I think like what we just talked about, I think is a good example of diversifying all around. So that could be your revenue streams, it can be your partnerships, who you're working with, and like the motive behind that, right? Like, is this partnership, a branded partnership where I'm making money? Is this a partnership because it's a charitable aspect? Do I want a partnership that is going to just help legitimize what I'm doing and give me social capital, right? Because I think it's really important to think about those buckets of your business. Like, okay, what is adding to my actual revenue and my bottom line? Okay, so your actual dollar capital, what is adding to my social capital and just like my social proof and legitimizing me as a creator, developing that trust in the industry and with the world at large. And then like, on the element of like your like human capital in a sense of like, how am I giving back and helping on that philanthropic angle, I think is it really, and that's something I've never like actually thought about or said out loud, but I think that's a really interesting way to look at how am I diversifying my business? And I think we can do that. You can do that as a food creator of like, of aligning and figuring out which buckets are going to be doing what as you're planning this and using this time to really be thinking about, where can I improve? Where can I be adding that in my business to add those components. In addition to, then thinking about, we can break those down. And if we want to talk about diversifying revenue streams, thinking about different downloads and freebies, or thinking about, do I want a branded product? Do I want to make my own merchandise? Do, product development there? And like for VTC 2024 coming up in September, we're talking about monetization. Like that virtual Tastemaker conference will be all about that, where we're talking specifically more about revenue, because that's a really important thing that right, we're here to make money. This is a business, but I think really being thoughtful about different ways that we can be doing that to achieve our goals. Right now, Q2, Q3 is coming with that plan. Use AI to come up with a business plan for you.
well, and a couple of things to be thinking of right now in Q2, getting back to our title of what do you do in Q2? So I just created again, this was a recommendation from my friend Molly. I created an ebook. I will actually have someone else create it because that's not my forte, but I had someone create an ebook of all of my most viral Instagram recipes into an ebook. And I'm going to be sharing those in little clips on a reel and saying, comment ebook or recipe or whatever you want to put on there. And I will send this free ebook to you. And then all they have to do to get that is just sign up for my newsletter. So my friend Molly did this and she gained 40,000 followers in 2 months, 30,000 followers in 2
months. Yeah. I mean, I think, and that's something I think that's relatively like high impact. And we've talked about this, the impact versus the effort, like high impact, relatively low effort, because you already have a lot of that content. And I think it's really thinking about how can I repurpose my content that I have and make this work for me in like a smarter, more productive way. And I think like that's also comes into streamlining your operations, which is our fourth point here of how can I reduce my cost and my effort overall without having to reinvent the wheel, more or less, and thinking really strategically. I think like this is a time of year where you can sit with yourself and get a little quiet, or like get into the nitty-gritty of thinking about how are things operating and performing? Because I think the beginning of the year, it's like we put these systems in place, and Q2 right now is a time to like be reflecting on what's working. And because I think it's a very iterative process, what's working, what's not, as you're reviewing everything, and be making the tweaks between now and Q3 so that come Q4, you feel like you have a really good plan and you've set yourself up along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I think that it's really important, like you're saying, work smarter, not harder. Use what you currently have. That's why I mentioned the ebook, is that stuff I already have on my site. And if I can use that to get thousands of new newsletter followers simply with, once
Packaging it differently.
doing it different. That's correct. And then I'm getting ready to do a holiday recipe book, which I'm so excited about. And most of the recipes are going to be ones that are currently on my blog. There will be a couple that are different and unique and new. But the reason that I'm doing this is because I've seen success with a couple of my friends who've done it. And I know my audience wants it, but it doesn't have to be brand new everything. This is not it. A lot of them just want it in the form of a book, and they don't care that it's on your website because they're never going to look at your website. You know what I mean? So using what you currently have and packaging it different, repurposing it, using it in different ways, and using what you already have to help you grow. And yeah, I just think that it's a really good way to work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, I agree. And so I think like I said, that touches on streamlining operations a little bit, and I think segues into that. We have just a few minutes left before we open up to Q&A. If we have any questions there. What are some specific automations or technology or platforms that you're using? We've already covered AI. I think that's a very obvious one. It can streamline so much of your stuff that you're spending hours doing that will then free you up to think of other ways to be creating revenue for your business and be doing the creative part and outsourcing the stuff that just makes you kind of want to die inside. Give that to AI because it has the capabilities to do that. But like we use Asana to streamline things, and we're continually refining that process and trying to just streamline it all in one spot. Notion is a big one, I think, that's on the up and coming because it's a mix of everything all in one platform. You mentioned Airtable, but what other things do you use?
I use ManyChat. That has been a game changer. I
Although Instagram came out like a few days ago, basically like saying, "Oh, ManyChat, don't do that anymore." But then I think they took the post down immediately, so nobody
so
even nobody even knows. Who even knows?
well, we saw it too. It was but Michelle Gifford, I think, who shared it. But it was I think the point to come back to with that is don't rely on any one thing, but use ManyChat, but use it in a way that again helps the people there. Like I'm not I am trying to get them to my site, and of course Instagram wants you to stay on Instagram. But if I'm continually creating content there as well and providing useful information on Instagram and stories and series and help, then I don't think they're going to punish you for also wanting to send them to your website. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but
Well, and that's why I think like this quarter is the time to like really dig in and be like, "Hey, how can I like really streamline this and make my workflow and my operating procedure for all my systems be like as efficient as they can be?" Because there's not a lot of like overhead
right.
stress of other things coming at you.
I feel
So,
like Loom has been great too because I just pivoted one of my writers to do something new for me to help me with something new. And I literally recorded like a 40-minute Loom and I sent it to her and I was like, sorry, that was really long. She goes, no, it was great. It was very helpful. So I think even just going back to some of the basics like Loom and Google Forms is what I'm telling you that like Molly used. So basic, but wonderful for your audience to pull them. And you really should be pulling your audience every single quarter because they have pain points every quarter, you
so
know?
what would you recommend is I mean, Q2 is almost over. Going into Q3, what would you be polling them about?
Going into Q3, I'd be pulling them about easy summer recipe or easy, how can I help you cook easy meals and keep your kids full while they're home for summer if you have kids. Also getting back to school, how can we make plans for good budget saving tips for lunches that
And
use
that's for people who have kids, but there's also a lot of adult,
so planning.
older people, like in retirement, two-person or one-person meals. I think thinking about whatever your content caters to. Yeah.
Yeah, whoever's yours is. But thinking about like as far as Q3, it's about no one wants to bake in the middle of July. Nobody wants to bake in July and August. So your things are going to be no bake. A lot of it is going to be no bake salads, cold like gazpachos or pasta salads or things like that, or but not just the recipe itself, but people getting it on the table. How can I help you get a quick meal on the table that doesn't require a lot of cooking? Or how can I help you as you're still having, still going to work but you don't really want to cook right now, get plan a lunch that's going to be delicious as well, but that is easy. It can be different things. It really is going to depend on your audience, what you're going to be pulling, because my audience on This Vivacious Life versus Holiday and Food and Fun, entirely different. My Holiday Food and Fun is ready to talk about October and Christmas and Halloween now.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to keep them focused on the 4th of July. Like, okay, let's still focus on 4th of July, although I'm ready for all of that too. But it's going to be really dependent upon your audience.
But that's interesting. Your content can be about 4th of July, but right now you can already be polling them and having internal conversations about the fall. And I think that might be an important takeaway from there is like you can be having multiple conversations about different things with your audience based on just the medium in which you're communicating, and like ask the questions for the answers that you want to get.
Well, and if
Right?
you wait until October to plan holiday content or to pull your audience, it's gonna be too late for you to get the content out and created and put together and tested and all of that. So
Yeah.
we really do work very far ahead as influencers and creators.
Yeah. And I think it's just
we're planning for January for our conference.
and I think like these conversations are just a lot of times just validating. Like it's like all of you might already know this information, but I think like there's a lot of value in the validation and just hearing, oh yeah, I am, and a reassurance almost like, oh, that's what I'm doing. It's nice to hear that this is what somebody else is doing and it's working for them, and exchanging notes and whatnot. We are almost out of time. We didn't get to financial planning and budgeting. So like a quick 30-second overview on that. I think what we're doing in Q2 and Q3, because we come up with our budgets and year-end reviews at the end of the year and then put them into place in Q1 and disseminate that. Q2, Q3 is when we are actively just reviewing and then making sure, okay, here's where our goals are. Are we hitting them? Are we succeeding them? Are we not quite there? And then using that data and information to inform our behavior through the rest of the year of like, okay, this is now what we need to focus on because we have these certain financial goals. So we have to strategize, and you have to have the flexibility to pivot and adjust and course correct based on what your financial goal is. So I think like that is, it was the last one, but it might be one of the most important ones when thinking about what your financial goal is going to determine like how you are creating your content, because they all have a different outcome. So that would be my thought process on that.
Yeah,
So,
and I would just add that if you're doing sponsored work, they're already planning for Q4. So start pitching and making those plans for what you can offer for Q3 and Q4 to brands now.
yeah. We have 2 minutes. Usually this is supposed to go to 3:45, depending on the topic and the group of how many questions there are. We can sometimes stretch it to 4, but we'll have 2 minutes for Q&A. If there are any particular questions you have, if you want to drop them in the chat here, we can just talk about those really quickly, or anything that maybe you just want to call out or say. Any comments you have, let us know. But in the meantime, we would love for you to join us at Virtual Tastemaker Conference, which is coming up in September. And you can buy tickets at the link in the chat. Daphne's going to drop that here, but we'll be offering a full day of workshops from industry experts to help you diversify your revenue stream. So the theme is all about monetization. Again, we had a really successful, was it last year that we did this too? And so just realizing that topic is really important, and just hearing from different perspectives on all the different ways that we can be monetizing, and not just around ad revenue either, because we're not moving away from that, but realizing the shift of there need to be other focuses, or a focal point on other aspects within your revenue streams. So the link is in the chat there. Let's see, Daphne has put it in there. Doesn't look like we have any questions or comments, so we will let you all go, but join us for June 19th for episode 4. We will be discussing Juneteenth and equitable practices for food bloggers, since it will be on June 19th, which is June 19th or Juneteenth, the holiday itself. So we're super excited to have that conversation. And we're grateful for you to be in this community. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.